Hey there, guys. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Webslingers podcast. This is the one and only show where we talk about all things Spider-Man and the Marvel Universe. And we got a pretty big story to talk about. Let's just not waste any time. Let's get right into it. This news broke today. Well, as I'm recording this, I'm recording this Monday night, so by the time this goes up, it'll be yesterday. Um, Marvel Studios executive Victoria Alonso has left the studio. This news dropped as a big, like, just shocker in the world of movie news today. This comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter, who write the following. Victoria Alonso, the long-time and high-profile Marvel Studios executive whose time with the company dates back to the first Iron Man, has left the studio. Multiple sources tell the Hollywood Reporter. The reason for the exits are unclear, but she parted ways with Marvel on Friday, sources say. And that comes to us from the Hollywood Reporter. Alonso had recently been the president of physical and media and post-production, VFX and animation production. So she had been in charge of physical production, post-production, VFX, and animation production as well. And for a while, we had no idea. There was no news as to why she left. All we knew when this news first dropped was that she was gone. She's gone. Well, someone on Twitter. I mean, not just some random fan. I believe he's a writer. I believe he's a writer. Believe he's a writer for Vulture, for the Vulture magazine. Yeah, senior reporter for Vulture. Yeah. He had sources who gave him just a little bit more details as to what happened. This is what he said. He said the following, quote, "So many VFX sources have told me Victoria Alonso was singularly responsible for Marvel's toxic work environment. A kingmaker who rewarded unquestioning featly with an avalanche of work, but who also maintained the blacklist that kept FX pros wild-eyed with fear. She held a crazy amount of power, bigfooting all major creative decisions on Marvel movies and shows. Kevin Feige and Victoria Alonso personally approve every single shot, all the VFX work, which is usually the job of a director or a showrunner. One tech told me the main one that everyone's quite scared of is Victoria Alonso. Another tech said, if she likes you, you're going to get work, and you're going to move up in the industry. If you have pissed her off in any way, you're going to get frozen out." So, this is a really, really big, major thing. Like I said, this is the biggest thing to have happened to Marvel in quite a while. I think the last time anything this big happened, oh boy, was probably when, oh no, probably when, like, Kevin Feige left Ike Perlmutter. Like, he stopped. There was that story that broke out about a few years ago now. I can't remember when this happened. I think it happened before. I think it happened right after Avengers: Age of Ultron came out. But essentially, before Kevin Feige would report to the executives at Disney, Kevin Feige had to report all of his ideas to Ike Perlmutter, who was like a senior executive who was Kevin Feige's boss. Now, obviously, Ike Perlmutter is no longer at the studio, but he was Kevin Feige's boss, and for a long time, Kevin Feige had to report to him. Well, um, Ike Perlmutter was one of the most incompetent leaders in the film industry that Bob Iger saw how frustrating Perlmutter was to work with and said, you know what? No, Kevin, you can report all your ideas to Alan Horn. That way there's no connection between you and Perlmutter. I think this is on that same level. Victoria Alonso leaving Marvel Studios. Now, as far as this quote about the VFX, this quote by Chris Lee, who has the VFX sources. Now, look, it's not like I have a very insider source. I don't. I don't have a really big inside information about this. So I don't know how legitimate his sources are. But if what I'm reading here is true, um, let me see. Singularly responsible for Marvel's toxic work environment. Okay, maintained that the blacklist that kept every VFX pros wild-eyed with fear. This does not sound good. This absolutely does not sound good. Now, again, I don't know if this is true. This could be true, but until either one, the Hollywood Reporter comes and confirms this with their sources, or if maybe like Marvel Studios officially puts out a statement in regards to this whole thing, we will never know. We probably will never know. However, this is really, really that is really, really crazy. The one thing that does shock me, though, most of all about all of this is Kevin Feige and Victoria Alonso personally approve every single shot, all the VFX work, which is usually the job of a director or a showrunner. Let me read that again. Kevin Feige and Victoria Alonso personally approve every single shot, all the VFX work, which is usually the job of a director and a showrunner. What is the last part of that sentence? Which is the job of a director or a showrunner. Here is the big problem with this, is that now Kevin Feige has so much power now at Marvel that he is becoming a Sony Pictures when they were running their Spider-Man universe, or a DC, which is now completely stripping all of the creative freedom from the directors. Now again, this is not like, this is an independent a reporter for a magazine who who had sources that have said this. Okay, again, we do not know if any of this is true, but going off of this statement, it sounds like Marvel really does not treat their VFX workers right. They do not, and we've always known that VFX workers don't get treated properly, but we've never heard anything. I've never heard anything on the level of this. And I gotta say, when you read all of this, it just sounds like a lot of things are going to have to change over there at Marvel. Because to have all of this come out, this is not good. Now, obviously, it seems like things are rapidly changing. Because it sounds like Disney is looking to put Marvel back on track to the kind of studio they were pre pre 2020. You know, the studio that kept putting out just great movie after great movie after great movie after great movie. Now, um some people have been asking me to have been asking me since this news has dropped. They've I've been hearing a lot of, well, if Victoria Alonso goes, then who's next? Which Marvel executive is next? It depends. It really depends on now. It sounds like the main reason why they got rid of Victoria Alonso had nothing to do with the failure of Ant-Man. Like, because I will say this: a lot of these report, like I think Variety wrote a report or something that said that she was fired because somebody, I can't remember who wrote it, whether it was Variety or it was somebody, wrote that she was fired because she was responsible for the failure of Ant-Man. She was like Ant-Man and the Wasp was a movie that she was responsible for, and that movie ultimately failed. I don't buy that for a second. I don't buy the fact that that's exactly what happened. I do buy this. I do buy some of this report. I do think because her title was the president of physical and post production, VFX, and animation production. This had something to do, I personally believe, with visual effects. And then when you hear Chris Lee's tweet here, Twitter thread, that's exactly what it sounds like we're hearing. You know, is that this had something to do with the VFX team. But it's a fair question. Um, I'll be honest. I remember about a year ago we had talked about this. If Kevin Feige were to leave, what are some of the Marvel executives who I think could take over as the president of Marvel Studios? And I had two names that came to mind, in my opinion. One of them was Nate Moore, who I still think should take over for Kevin Feige if Kevin Feige ever leaves. I do think Nate Moore should be the one to take over. But what the other name that I put on that list was Victoria Alonso. I thought she could have had a very. She is one of those executives that could have led Marvel Studios post Kevin Feige. But now hearing this report, hearing some of this stuff that we're hearing, it sounds like she is almost as bad as Perlmutter. Um, and I don't know. It just when I hear some of this stuff, you know, the blacklist that kept VFX pros wild eyed with fear, a crazy amount of power, bigfooting all major creative decisions on Marvel movies and shows. You know, the fact that Marvel doesn't even give their creative executives a say, their directors a chance to approve certain shots. The fact that Feige and Feige and Alonso are the ones who personally approve every single shot, knowing that is not your place. I'm sorry, Kevin Feige, but that is just not your place. That is a director's job. The director is the one who should be given that freedom. Now, Kevin Feige has his notes. There's a difference between having notes for a story and just coming in and basically trying to do the director's job. Because at this point, why even have directors if you're going to be the one who's basically going to be stripping most of the work they do and saying, yeah, maybe I want to approve this shot. It's like, it just is, I don't know, man. This is just all, this is just all crazy. Like, I can't believe this. So, the biggest question out of this whole thing is, um, will Kevin Feige ultimately leave? Now, you guys know how I feel about Kevin Feige. I think Kevin Feige, for the most part, is a genius. I love almost, again, I want to emphasize almost there. I love almost everything Kevin Feige has done with the MCU. Um, let's face it, if we did not have Kevin Feige, there would be no Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is no Marvel Cinematic Universe without the mind of Kevin Feige. Absolutely not. You know? However, I personally feel like the lack in quality of these Marvel movies is honestly Kevin Feige. I feel like it's because Kevin Feige is just stretched way too thin. As the president of Marvel Studios, him being in charge of everything, not just the movies, but TV shows, comic books, video games. He's now in charge of all of it. It I don't know. It very much seems to me that Kevin Feige has lost some of that magic that he's always had. I personally believe it's time for Kevin Feige to just say, look, I've put in a lot of time here at Marvel, but I think it's time for me to step away and go do something else. Or just flat out, just pull a Quentin Tarantino and just flat out retire. Because I love Kevin Feige, man. I really, really do. But this is just unacceptable. And for the survival of the MCU, I think the MCU would truly benefit um from a change. Now, certainly the MCU is most likely going to be heavily impacted by Victoria Alonso leaving the studio. Now, Victoria Alonso, you're still going to see her name in the credits of a lot of Marvel films. Let me just see. Let me just see who wrote it in there. Uh, was it Deadline who wrote it? Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay, no. Uh, Sorry guys, I'm looking here. I think it might have been Variety who wrote it. Okay, so Variety wrote this in their article. They said they wrote the following: despite her sudden exit on Friday, Alonso is credited as a producer on the upcoming Marvel films, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and The Marvels, plus the Disney Plus shows Secret Invasion, Ironheart, Echo, and Agatha Agent Coven of Chaos. So you're still going to see her name attached to some MCU projects, but after we get Agatha Coven and Chaos, that's going to be the last time we see her That's gonna be the last time we see her name attached to a Marvel Studios Marvel Studios project. Now, to wrap all this up, let me go ahead and wrap all this up by just saying one more thing. This is the right thing for Marvel to do. Again, I have no idea if any of this stuff is true, but if it is true, the fact that she is the reason that she was, quote, singularly responsible for Marvel's toxic work environment, I completely understand why that is. Um, I it just makes sense that if somebody is acting that way, if somebody is going to use their power to strike fear into people, then they deserve to leave. I'm sorry, they don't deserve to be at that company. I worked at one place, and I'm not gonna say what place it was, but I remember I worked in at one place where a certain individual would use whatever authority they had to make other people feel like complete crap and would threaten them with being fired and all that, Um, now, that is something that is unacceptable. When something like that happens, the right team of management is going to look at that and go, you know what? No, that's not the kind of thing we need at our place. And they're going to fire that individual. And it sounds like that's what happened with Victoria Alonso. It sounds like Victoria Alonso was using her power to bully the visual effects artist. And you wonder why VFX artists have been coming out recently and have been saying, we don't want to work with Marvel anymore. Because they have studio executives like Victoria Alonso who are abusing their power. And again, the fact that they don't even let the director choose what shots get approved, it's just mind-boggling to me. Ah, it's strange. I don't know what else to say, but it's strange. So, um, yeah, I. This is not the news that we usually want to talk about on this show, but because it is the biggest news we've had. Now, unless somehow tomorrow, after I completely edit and schedule this episode to go up, maybe there'll be something else that drops. My apologies in advance. So, but yeah, guys, is that it? Is that it? Is that all we got for today? Okay, that's all we got for today. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget, guys, there's a brand new episode of To the Batcave up on the podcast feed right now. Brand new episode of Throwback Thursday happening this Thursday, and a brand new episode of the Zeke The Geek show is coming this. Well, it came out last Friday, but it's continuing its run this week. So that will do it for this episode episode of the Webslinger podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you guys like this podcast, I think you should share it and subscribe. I think I should subscribe to the podcast because Zeke the Geek said so. And don't forget, guys, with great power comes great responsibility.